כולנו מופתעים והמונים מהמוות המסורבים של ארון טירשוויל יקירנו. רק כמה חודשים בנווה דניאל, עוד לא הכרנו אותו כראוי, לכן אני לא ראוי להספיד כמו שצריך, ויהיו כמה שיעזרו לי. מהמעט שהכרנו, כמה פגישות וכמה דברים ששמענו, אלן גדל במשפחה שכבר ההורים שלו היו פעילים גדולים למען עם ישראל בארץ ישראל. האבא דני, האמא ברברה, הייתה גזברית של תנועת הדסה בארצות הברית, והוא גדל כמו האח הרב פרי. המשפחה גדלה בצורה דתית, ציונית, עם הרבה עשייה למען הציבור. אנחנו בשבת שקראנו בעלותך את הנרות, התפקיד של הכהן, אהרון, התפקיד הוא להעלות נרות, לא רק של עצמו, לא רק של המשפחה, אלא של כל עם ישראל. כבר כשארן היה חניך ב-NCSY, היה בולט בתרומה, בנתינה לאחרים, ואחר כך מדריך, ואחר כך region leader, קומונר, מה שקוראים בארץ, פעיל ומשפיע בהרבה עוצמה, וגם בהמשך החיים היה פעיל להעלות את הנרות בארגונים, בעמותות, בקהילה ובקהילות רבות נוספות, וכל מיני פרויקטים שאפשר להעלות את הנרות למען עם ישראל. גם בתקופה האחרונה, אחד הפרויקטים האחרונים, זה היה לדאוג לנוער בסיכון, נוער מיוחד שבא לארץ, לדאוג להם לכל הטיפול, לכל מה שאפשר לעזור בצורה מיוחדת, במקום שהוא ראה שמישהו אחר לא מעלה את הנרות, אז הוא העלה את הנרות. עם הרבה נדיבות ומסירות, נתינה לאחרים, הקרבה מעצמו, וכך גידל גם את המשפחה, והילדים פה איתנו, אפי ואלי שבצבא, ויהודה, שקיווינו לזכות יחד איתו שהוא יהיה בבר מצווה, ולא זכינו לדבר הזה. משפחה יפה, וכל המערכת החיים הזאת של העלאת הנרות, מרסי, אחר כך בהמשך, בנווה דניאל, ועוד קודם, עם רבקה, שהקימו את ביתם רק לפני כמה חודשים בעוון לנווה דניאל, וגם בנווה דניאל התחלנו להרגיש את הפעילות הזאת, והכל נקטע בצורה כל כך מפתיעה. גם המשפחה שהזכרתי, משפחה יותר גדולה, מעגלים יותר רחבים של חברים שהכירו והעריכו את כל הנדיבות, את כל הטוב, את כל העלאת הנרות. אנחנו היום הזה צריכים להיפרד ממנו כאן, כך זאת הגזרה שנגזרה, ולהביא אותו למנוחת עולמים כאן בגוש עציון, במקום שהוא כל כך אהב, בארץ ישראל, בין חברון, בית לחם וירושלים. ואנחנו נפרדים ממנו היום הזה, לא זכינו להמשיך את החיים, להמשיך את העלאת הנרות. אני אזמין את סטיבן לודרדייל, חבר של המשפחה, בהספד, ואנחנו בקהילת נווה דניאל נפרדים ממך ובארון, שלמד גם בוואיו, גם בישיבת המבטר, היה לו גם סמיכה, ואומרים לו שילך לשלום ויהיה מליץ יושר כל המשפחה וכל החברים.
When Harry asked me to speak, I didn't know what exactly to say. I wasn't sure I could speak. And look, you know, Claire for 24 years. He has friends I see in the audience that he's had for 35, 40 years. And I think that's why I was scared to speak, because representing what Aaron's represented for his whole entire life, it's an awesome responsibility. Some of you only know him for 5 years, for 10 years. I didn't really know the breadth of what Aaron was. It's the smile that he brought to the table, the friendship that he always had. He was always there as a friend. I thought about talking about roast he threw for me, but I'm not allowed to. I think that's not for this audience. So you'll have to come to the show and I'll share it there. But he was always worried about his friends, his family, the kids. He was always had a smile on his face. As the rabbi said, before I knew him, he went to Australia and did kiruv there. His life is a lot about that smile and that kiruv that he could bring people in. He kind of grew up like I did. He wasn't religious. And coming from that world, he had a perspective that is a little bit more unique, and he was always dedicated to the Jewish people. But as I said, I didn't know what I was going to say. So my wife posted something on Facebook, so I hope you haven't seen it yet. But I wanted to quickly read that. And it's her birthday, and she was a little bit upset. She didn't know what to write. So she writes about her birthday for like one line, and then says, "Today is also a day that I and many others have to say goodbye to a really, really good friend and dear friend. We've known Aaron for over 25 years. We lived across the street from the Tirschwells for many years. Our kids have shared smachot together, and bar mitzvahs, up times and down times. Our children refer to Aaron as Uncle Aaron because he was always part of our lives to show love and closeness. Back in the day when Aaron was very successful, he had a tremendous influence on all the Jewish communal work, from the National Council of Young Israel to the OU to YU. He was always in a suit, ready to go, suited up, and we see his smile. His bright eyes filled with enthusiasm to help the Jewish people. Our families remain very close here in Israel. The past 10 to 15 years, Aaron's health has deteriorated, hasn't been what it once was, and some health issues arose. And yesterday, unfortunately, he succumbed. I've driven him I remember in America, I had to drive him to NYU several times. It's been an ongoing thing. But we're saddened for his amazing children, for Effie, for Ellie, for Yehuda, who are like my sons. So may they be strong and have strength to move forward. We love you guys. To Rabbi Perry Tirshwell, your brother, your brother was an amazing, good man, and he's beloved by us. To Rivka, who's been part of his life more recently, you brought love and kindness to his life, and he's had a much better outlook over the past several years. And thank you for that. We got Aaron back. And to Marcy, while things might have always been right and easy, there were always good times, and you have 3 amazing sons together. So to Aaron, may you rest well, my friend. May you no longer suffer, and may you be at Shemayim with your parents. We're so grateful to have known you and had you in our lives. You will truly be missed.
הרב סיני פרבור, חבר ילדות, NCSY, הלאה הרבה פעילויות נוספות, כהן, נווה דניאל, הרב פרבור ידבר מהחדר של הכהן.
A few weeks ago, Parshat Haftarah from Sefer Yirmiyahu, Perek Bet, where we're told of the fact that the impending Churban, Yerushalayim is besieged by the Babylonians. Yirmiyahu, because of his audacity to bring the word of Hashem to Tzidkiyahu HaMelech about the impending Churban, is imprisoned in Chatzar Matara, and he receives a nevuah. And Hashem tells him this is what's going to happen. A relative of yours, Hanok ben Shalom, fellow resident of Ramatot, is going to come. Is going to ask you to redeem land. so that it stays within the family. And you're going to purchase the land. And you're going to tell your scribe, Baruch ben Uriah, to write down in a document that this land purchase is taking place. You're going to make sure to do whatever you can to preserve that document, put it in an earthenware vessel, bury it in the ground, and that's what Uriah tells Baruch ben Uriah has to happen. His cousin shows up, he makes the transaction, he cries out to Hashem and says, I'm being imprisoned here because I'm giving a nevuah that Yerushalayim is going to be destroyed. And soon, and the Beit HaMikdash is going to be destroyed, and it's going to be galut, and the land is going to be desolate. Why are you making me my land? And Hashem responds and says, Hashem davar, Sadot v'kesef yiknu, v'chulei, ki yashiv v'shvitam yom Hashem. Don't look at what's lying before you now, Uriah. Look at what's going to happen 70 years hence. Once again, real estate in Israel will be a good investment. You have to see the potential and not the desolation that shortly is coming. Aaron was someone who dedicated his life to seeing in the present situation the potential of what could be. I was just thinking these thoughts yesterday evening and trying to figure out, what was most salient in terms of what I remember about Aaron. And I was out and I got home and a call came in from the United States. Another close friend who just called to reflect, to grieve together. And as we spoke, he started to talk about the points that remained most salient for him. And he hit upon the very same point. And he talked about various ways that Aaron had impacted upon the trajectory of his life. And Aaron was the one that dragged me, forced me to come with him to Haas, to be an advisor in NCSOI, to become a chapter advisor. For Aaron, my life would have been totally different. And it wasn't a mentor who was years older. It was just a friend, a colleague, but someone who, when he saw certain possibilities, I knew that I had to convince that person that this is what he has to do. And as he said this, as this friend relayed this to me over the phone, so much resonated for me how Aaron had done that for me as well, and for so many others. That he was, at that time, in our formative years, running into his wine, he was the one that pushed me to get more involved and take more of a leadership role, but push others to see that potential in me and in my 35 years in Chinuch. I don't know if I would have been the same kind of mechanech had Aaron not been the one to push me in a certain direction and see the potential where others, and me myself, could not see it. This had to do with Aaron's ability to have vision, to be able to see what it was that Hashem was telling him. You see the way things are now, or the way things are about to be after the Korban. You could look 70 years from now. What the possibilities are. It was about vision. But it wasn't only about vision. Aaron and I were roommates for 4 years, and I would see him working the phones. He not only would spend hours of his time, whether it was just thinking about, discussing with other people, discussing with me, who's the best person who could be, who could fill this position, whether it was on chapter board, whether it was later in Lincoln Square Synagogue, wherever he was. Right? He would spend hours thinking about it, talking about it. Potentially, how could I create a certain reality? But then he would spend hours and hours more cultivating those relationships, cultivating those people, making those people realize that he spoke to that this is not something that could happen, but that must happen. This is your destiny. You have to do this. And Aaron would use every ounce of energy and charisma he had to make the other person realize that A, Aaron was right, but B, that infectious personality made the other person realize that yes, this reality has to be a reality. What Aaron is saying is the only reality.
not only did he have that charisma and that ability, but he didn't waste it. He used it for so many incredible things. Whether it was NCSY, Counterpult, Jolt, Lincoln Square, Lauderdale, Israel, so many different projects. As Matanya spoke about before, it's no surprise, coming from where he came from, the dedication of his mother in Hadassah and father in terms of Israel bonds, all the work that was done all the years. The story that Aaron used to tell about his father, he used to convince people, you have to come with me on this pilot, on this mission to Israel, this Israel bonds mission to Israel. And people just came because that infectious personality, that's what Aaron had. He got from his parents, he brought it to everything he was involved in. And most recently, in terms of Aaron's attempt to create a new I-Squad, a new project to help Nora Sikun in Israel, it's because he never gave up on seeing the potential that could be. Not looking at what was in front of him now, but seeing what could be. That's a debt of gratitude that I feel that I owe him. I think many of you share the same sentiment. He's a brother.
הרב יוסף ג'פרי סאקס, בפרט חבר וחבר של המשפחה.
Rabbi Soloveitchik observes something along the lines that there's something absurd in the act of hesped, as if just a few hours after someone has left the world, we would be granted the insight or understanding in order to appreciate him in ways we were often unable and sometimes unwilling to appreciate him when he walked amongst us. Like so many of you, my long friendship with Aaron, which goes back to the time when I was a young man, 9th grade in NCSY. He was a few years older on the regional board. And there were so many people in those days as I was making my journey into a life of observance. There were so many people, so many of you are here, who were kind to me, who took interest in me, who wanted to help me, who wanted to teach me, learn with me, guide me. But ultimately the greatest gift was the idea that they wanted to befriend me on my own terms. And of all the very many people, including you, of course, Perry, Aaron exemplified that idea. The simple act of friendship. In the many odd and unexpected turns that our long friendship has taken over the years, well, way back when, in my 9th grade, he certainly never envisioned, and I could not have imagined that one day I would be Masader Kedushin at your wedding just 2.5 years ago. And I'm so proud that I was able to have a small role in helping create the tragically short-lived but wonderfully blessed bond that brought him so much happiness and love in these past few years. After 10th grade, after I finished 10th grade and went off to Camp Pass, Aaron was returning from his year here at Broadlanders. And at that point, he just thought it was so natural that we should learn together over the summer. I'd never really learned much, certainly nothing beyond the old NCSY Shabbaton sessions. But with all the enthusiasm of someone fresh back from yeshiva. He thought we should look inside, we should sit, learn Mishnah. So we started learning Pirkei Avot. Very early on in the first parak of Avot, with Yoshua ben Prachi Omer, Aseh l'charav, Knei l'cha chaver, v'havedan et kol ha'adam l'chav zkut. At some point later, as our relationship matured, he confessed to me, in the spirit of Knei l'cha chaver, that he often felt misunderstood. That he thought people mistakenly believed he was trying to buy their friendship. That he was an inveterate gift giver. Last night, I started pulling books off the shelves. Probably half the books in my library have an inscription from Tirshwell. There wasn't a time I'd expressed interest in something as a young man, in some topic in Torah or in Judaism, that the next time you'd see him at the Shabbaton, he'd have brought you a book on the topic. At one point I mentioned that I didn't really have much Jewish music in my home. You know, all the songs that we used to sing at the Shabbatons. The next time he brought me a case of, I must admit, bootlegged, the whole Mordechai ben David, Dvekus, Sivan collection. If only I had a way to still play them, I could find them in my son. And he feared that people misunderstood this. He wasn't trying to buy anyone's friendship. He just thought that was the natural thing. When you love someone, when you want to help someone, when you want to show how you feel about them, that's what a person does. Knei l'cha chaver doesn't mean buy your friends. It's not a purchase. It's an investment. If you want to have friendships that last 25 and 35 and 40 years, you have to invest in them. You have to be prepared to keep putting in the investment even when there's not always an immediate return. That's what creates long-lasting relationships. That's what creates long-lasting friends. And if you succeed in Knei l'cha chaver, havedan et kol ha'adam l'chav zkut. He was sometimes misunderstood. He wasn't always judged favorably. And we ask his forgiveness for that. In the long struggle, it's important to remember, for so many of us, going back to high school, he was the life of the party. He brought joy, fun, silliness. Were not for the seriousness of the moment, I'd be almost tempted to do a routine from Blazing Saddles. And he would have wanted that, actually. And if he didn't succeed in maintaining that persona at all moments throughout his life, it's important that we remember him, who he really was. And if there's one enduring lesson to us and to his wonderful boys, is that when we think of him, we should think of happy Aaron, fun Aaron, someone who brought so much joy to our lives. Knei l'cha chaver, havedan et kol ha'adam l'chav zkut. Yehי zikro baruch.
האח, הרב פרץ, פרי,
shock. I got the call at 3:30 in the morning our time in New York. We're in shock because of Aaron's age. We're in shock because none of us knew, I spoke to him Friday, that there was a health issue that would possibly end us up here. And we're in shock, as was mentioned a number of times, because Aaron, I think, in the last 2 years was really on an upswing. But I feel that the purpose of this funeral today is not for all of us that knew Aaron through Efrat, through NCSY, through YU, through Marcy, through Rivka, through his children. I feel the purpose of this event today, and all the speakers have tried to give us this sense, is to give you boys, to give Effie, to give Ellie and Yehuda a sense of their father. Because I think that the father that they know and remember is not for those of us who knew Aaron, is a different person. The Aaron not of last week, not last month, not last year, not even the last decade. But frankly, before Aaron came in Aliyah. Now, I'm not trying to say that Aaron had bad years here in Israel. Aaron loved being in Israel. And I'm sure if we had the opportunity to ask him, what do you feel was one of the top 1-2 accomplishments of your life? He would tell you moving to Israel. But, and arguably, he felt that was number one. He felt it was a realization, as was mentioned before, of our parents' dream, who our parents were rejected by the state of Israel in 1956. I'll tell you the story at another time. They're repeated their funerals. But, and to Aaron's credit, I don't mean to offend any of you in the room, but to those of us who sit on the other side of the pond, we find that people come on Aliyah, and a year later they become unpaid, unofficial recruiters for Aliyah. When are you coming? That's what every time I come to Israel, it's not hello, how are you? When are you coming? Where are you moving? Aaron did not, despite Israel meant so much to him and being here, he felt this was where he belonged, in the center of history. But Aaron saw the warts, along with the positives, and had his dealings with the medical bureaucracy in Israel throughout the years. But this Aaron loved being here, but the Aaron that the greatness of Aaron really never shined here in Israel. He never really found himself here. And I don't want to, speeches were beautiful. I try not to touch on some of them because they were captured so well. But I just mentioned a few other points. Now, Aaron, as was mentioned, was a good friend. Aaron was the guy who always remembered your birthday. Aaron was the guy who always made sure to get together with the person. There was something going on, and it's not the Aaron that we remember from the last few years. But that's who Aaron Tirshwell was. Aaron was exciting. Aaron was always hyping up whatever he was doing. There was enthusiasm to whatever he was doing. When he worked with teenagers, when he worked with adults, ran conventions for rabbis. Aaron was a tremendous enemy of the states of Washington and Oregon, because Aaron would print so many flyers and so many brochures. That man felled so many trees because he would hype up posters and so many things. Whatever he was doing, it worked. Every time Aaron tried to do things bigger and better. Aaron was very creative, and much more creative than I am. I always marveled at his creativity, and that creativity created moments on this continent, in Poland. I used to joke about my brother loved vacationing in Poland, but he loved so many trips to Poland. I bump into people from time to time. They tell me, I went with your brother to, on Joel to Poland, and, changed the whole direction of my life. And all those creating key moments that had an influence on the trajectory of people's lives was something Aaron was really good at. Aaron, and I know, might not be the one you saw. Aaron was very, very detail-oriented. Your father was ridiculously detail-oriented. He'd run a conference, and there'd be 3 or 4, concurrent sessions. Aaron he knew what number of chairs had to be in that room, because he thought this person was going to draw a bigger crowd. What audio-visual aids, whatever they were in those days, what that particular speaker needed. That speaker needed water, but he needed Perrier, he needed it, whatever it was. Aaron had lists, another enemy of the trees, but Aaron had all sorts of lists. And knowing where all these things are going, it's hard, it's worth our getting together to remember that's who Aaron was. Your father was fearless. I always marvel at this, because I'm scared to call important people. I always say, who am I? What am I calling them? Why should they take my call? He didn't care. He didn't care. He called any rabbi, any famous rebbe, any famous speaker that he wanted to get to an event. He'd say, what the heck? All they'll do is say no. And, he possessed a self-confidence, which maybe was an outer self-confidence, but a self-confidence and a boyish charm, which the combination was difficult to say no to, because it wasn't an arrogance. It was just, I think you'd be really great at this, and I'd really appreciate if you would do this. Aaron, and again, the boys might not have seen this, but Aaron was a workaholic. Aaron was working 24/6, 24/7 really, before we had devices that helped us out doing that. And sometimes I wondered what he was doing with all that. You need another list for this or that or whatever. But Aaron was indefatigable. And had a standard of perfection, which he always strove for. My brother was an early adapter of technology. Now, like most people, you sort of plateau at some point with technology. My father plateaued with the fax machine. Never went further. I was still getting, my father's got 6 years. I was still getting, till the day of his death, I was getting faxes of articles. I kept the fax machine really only for that reason. But Aaron, I could not figure something out. He was a great troubleshooter. Not just he kept up with the trends, but I said, how do you do this in Word or Excel or whatever? And he said, well, here, 1, 2, 3. And no matter who asked, you enjoyed helping people with those things. In many ways, my brother not only followed me in my religious journey, but he went further. He followed me to Frisch, he followed me to NCSY, but he stayed around YU. He made it to the famous 4th floor, first of all, what was called in those days the Max Stern Division of Community Services. And it was not a simple jump to make. Bring something back to those days. But in those days, the NCSY people and the YU seminar people, it was not a marriage made in heaven. I think, each had their own view, but at least the seminar people, I think they sort of looked down at the NCSY people and say, oh, all you guys are doing is you put you get someone to play guitar, you put a bunch of kids on the floor, tell them about your stories, we're more intellectual. Aaron not only came through NCSY, worked at NCSY, but took over Division of Youth Services. Aaron took this seriously. Aaron was professional. Aaron decided if he's going to be working in a nonprofit world, he's going to get a master's in public administration, not just a master's in public administration, but from NYU. He's going to get one. I think Aaron, you can check with Rabbi Penner later, but completed smicha and college and smicha before I did, despite my being 3 years his senior. And though I continue to work with adults, with students, with teenagers, Aaron graduated at a certain point in his years at the National Council of Young Israel to working with adults. You know, when I moved to Florida for the first time, it was very humbling. This might happen to some of you guys. I became Rabbi Tirschwell's brother. See, I was not used to that. I had this little brother. He followed me around. He looked a little like whatever it was, but his way to my way. And then I moved to Florida. I was there for 16 years. I would meet rabbis. Lay leaders? Oh, you related to Rabbi Tirshwell? So at the first time I was like, no, he's related to me. What do you mean? And then I realized Aaron had become like a national celebrity in the Orthodox world. He was helping communities throughout the country. During the economic downturn in the States, so Moshe Lichtenstein wrote a very insightful letter about people who were having challenges in terms of employment. And the letter said the basic idea was that most people, when they think about employment challenges, they think about the bottom line, they think about paying bills, and they think about cash flow. But he wrote in the letter that for many men, maybe women as well, but for many men, and only as men from the yeshiva, that he said it's about much more, and it's about self-image, about self-worth, about how do they perceive their whole place in the world. And I think that in many ways, it describes what happened in the last decade or so to Aaron. Though his professional height might have been in the NCSY, YU, and Young Israel years, I think that Aaron never questioned his move here. Because I asked him a few times, maybe you should come back to the States. Maybe that's where you had success here. Maybe that's where you belong. And it was the furthest thing from his mind. Rivka, I truly can't imagine the pain that you were in. I thank God many times for sending you into Aaron's life. I don't know what we did to deserve someone who so much desired to arrest his medical decline. You had him taking his medication, his eyesight improved markedly, and walking your dog Teddy and the 43 steps from your apartment in Neve Daniel gave him more exercise than at any time in probably a number of decades. I know that you've been in this dark and terribly sad place before, but I pray that Hashem will once again give you the superhuman strength to rise above it. To Aaron's friends, those who spoke and those who could speak and tell stories just as well that are here. I know it's been many years since Aaron was that fun guy that Jeff so aptly described. And by and large, those of you here in Israel, in the last few years, whether you go back with him a long way or a short way, but in many ways it became a one-way street. The guy that always brought you the presents was expecting and needed your help. And I can't thank you enough for altruistically sticking by him as long as you did. Marcy, My parents and Ibadol Mechaim L'chaim, Miriam and I are grateful to you for raising 3 fine boys. We're even more grateful to you for sticking by Aaron through a long descent and breaking off things only when you felt you had no choice, for the sake of your children. You continued to bring the boys to visit my mother, after you're not married to Aaron, and you always showed her the utmost respect, even when she technically was not your mother-in-law. Thank you for hosting the shiva this week. We apologize that living here in the U.S., or there in the U.S., I guess, about that, where was the plane? We are not here to help you with the raising of the only children in this generation that carry the Tirshwell name. Effie, Eli, and Yehuda. I don't know if Effie or Eli ever knew the father we're describing, and I know Yehuda certainly did not know. The man we've all described is the man that your mother fell in love with and married and wanted it to be the father of her children. I think we did not exaggerate here. I think, if anything, we didn't do it justice. Though your father did bounce back from his lowest point to some extent over the past 2 years, unfortunately, none of this description captures the Aaron Tirshwell of recent memory. Medication maybe ensured that the lows were not too low, but it also prevented the highs from being too high. My dear nephews, listen to all the stories you'll hear this week. And try to recognize that your father did bequeath you with some of your many great qualities, even if you never realized that he was the source. Lastly, to my brother Aaron. One of my greatest regrets in life has always been that I was not a better older brother. With the passage of years, I came to realize that our father did play that role for his younger brother and for our first cousins, but I failed at it. The unsolicited advice I so desperately wanted to give you didn't come across with love and concern. I so much wanted to help you, as so many people here in this room wanted to. But I think they just didn't know how. Whenever I said to you that I wished I could be more helpful to you, you always tried to make me feel better by saying that my weekly calls to check on you were more than enough. And I ask your forgiveness. Tehei nafshcha tzura b'tzura chaim.
עקביה בן מעללל אומר, הסתכל בשלושה דברים ואין אתה בא לידי אמירה, גם מהמבט העולם אתה הולך, ולפני מי אתה תיתן דין בחשבון, מאין באת, אני סלוחה, ולאן אתה הולך, במקומך מוות עולה, ולפני מי אתה תיתן דין בחשבון, לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, גדול העצה ורב העליליה, אשר עיניך וכוחות הכל דרכי בני אדם, לתת לאיש כברכה וכפרי מעלליו, להגיד כי ישר אדוני צורי ולא עוולת בו. אדוני נתן ואדוני לקח, יהי שם אדוני מבורך. והוא רחום יכפר עוון ולא ישחית, וירבה להשיב אפו ולא יאיר כל חנתו. קדיש.
אמן.
אמר דברת חירותיהם להנמיך מלכותיהם, וישמח פורקני ויקרם משיחם. ויכולנו ויכול לכל בית ישראל לעגלה ולזמרים לאמור אמן.
אמן. יהי שמך בה מברך וידענו מאלמיה.
יברך וישתבח ויספר ויצומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויצלל ויסעדר ושמם ויחושב
נכון.
וידע מכל ויחסיו לשרתיו ושלוחתיו לנחמתיו דם ליד לאדמה ואמור אמן. ויש להם הרבנות שחיים החיים והבאים בני ישראל ואמור אמן. עושה שלום